everyone, Linda here, the scrapbooking photographer. I am so excited to put this video together. Hopefully it comes together the way I see it in my head, but who knows. Thanks for joining me today. It's a special video where everybody on this hop is celebrating 1,000 subbies for Tara O'Rourke, also known as the Paper Snob. So Tara did this layer a few weeks ago, which I absolutely adored. So I asked her if I could scrap lift for this hop, and she said go for it. So along with the scrap lift that I'll do, there are some criteria that Tara's put down for this special hop, and we've got this colour palette to work with, as well as adding some stitching, some flowers or leaves, some buttons, and to incorporate my favourite colour. So my favourite colour is pink, so there will be a little bit of pink in there. I have some buttons that I think will go with the photos I'm working with. And the photos are from a day I went cake decorating. I do some voluntary baking for a place called GBB, which coordinates home bakers with organisations who could do a little home baking. So each month I bake for a charity. And this particular day we got together to learn how to do some fondant icing on little cupcakes. So we all made the cakes and took them with us along with the icing, and then learnt how to make these different shapes to decorate the tops of the cakes. And then we put them all into boxes and donated them to the Cancer Society, who offered us the venue for the class. So it was a really fun morning, and it's going to be a double page spread, but today I'll just do the right hand page. So I thought at the end of it we're going to have I think the boxes where in that table of cakes, and perhaps a close-up of cakes, and we'll leave the workings of everything for the left-hand page. Right, so because of the layer I'm going to start with a circle, and I'm also using this piece of colourful paper from the Memory Lane suite of Close to My Heart, so it's an older pack obviously, and I'm going to use the yellow, which is the honey butter, and the pewter, all Close to My Heart paper. So I'm just trying really hard to use these up by the end of the year. So I have cut the circle and attached it to this old guide I've got from Creative Memories so that I can make some places to stitch. Now I want to come in a little piece. I'll just bring you down a bit closer in case you want to see this. I don't know if this is how Tara does it, but this is the way I figured I'd do it. I've never done this before, so I thought I'd just come down to where the blue blade would have gone, and just at the end of each of those lines put a hole through the cardstock. Now it means putting a hole through the template as well, but I don't really think that matters at this stage. I don't use it as a template anymore. But these things stay in our cupboard, don't they? So the reason I'm not doing each end is because the space between here and here is uneven, is not the same as here. So I'm going to just do on the left hand end of all of those little stripes, and then what I'll do is come back and go halfway in the middle between them, and that way I'll get an evenly spaced circular lot of stitches. So I'll go away and finish that, because you certainly don't want to watch me do this all the way around the circle, and I'll come back when we're ready for the next stage. Okay, so now I've finished going around the outside of that. I can take it off the template, and I'll keep that now because that will be quite handy at other times if I want to do the same sort of thing. Pop that to one side. Now I did poke my piercing tool through into this spongy piece from Stampin' Up, so that's good. Now turning this over, it's going to go there, but with this in between. And so the colour cotton that I'm going to sew around here with is, I want it to match the background, so I'm using that charcoal one, which is a 317 from DMC. And I'm going to use all 6 strands. So I wanted a needle that had a relatively thick eye. It doesn't need to be very sharp because it doesn't need to pierce the paper, but I do want it to be able to take the 6 threads through the eye fairly easily, like that. And so what I'm going to do is just come up through one of these holes, try and keep it under the camera, and just tape a tail underneath with a little piece of that sellotape. And then do a basic back stitch all the way around. I'm going to come down through one, then up, and then coming back to go down the other way. I probably would have, if I'd had a choice, used the pearl thread, which is a little bit thicker and you only need 1 strand of it, but I've only got it in red and green for Christmas crafts, so I had to resort to this DMC thread. And so long as I go down without splitting it too much, I think it will look alright. So I'll carry on around the outside of this until I get to the back to the beginning, and that will be the stitching component of this layout done. Okay, so I'm just about at the end. So I just thought I'd pop in and show you how I'm finishing this off. And I have had to replace it, top up the needle on the way round because it ran out. And unfortunately, the second one ran out just 2 stitches from the end, which I probably could have got away with, but that's right. From behind, I've also gutted the middle out of the back there, and I'm going to use that to mount these photos. And I'm probably going to cut them down a little bit. I ended up trimming the one with the 2 boxes in half, really, so that we can spread them around in the middle, and then just taking the bottom off that top one to split it into 2. Now the piece that I took out of the back is the only piece of that I can find until I go into my scrap box and find a bit more. So I really want to make it stretch, so I've put a little bit on the bottom there and just going to thread these other photos in between the photo and the mounting cardstock so that we can make it look as though it goes all the way underneath. So once I have got those all in kind of place, I'll just go round the outside of the circle with the honey butter ink pad, and that will just get rid of that white core that comes through the middle there. And I'll also do the same with the darker grey. I'm not actually sure if it's pewter or charcoal, and it's the last piece, as I say, that I've got of that colour. So I'll go around the outside of that with the pewter as well, again just to get rid of that white core in there. And then I can stick them all down. So first of all, I'll place them where I want them on that yellow circle, and then just stick them down underneath with a little bit of double-sided tape so that they stay in place while I play with everything else and get everything in the right spot. So as you can see, I'm just putting one little strip of sticky and putting them down, so they're not kind of secure yet, but they are in place so that I remember where I've put them. But before I can actually stick the yellow circle onto the pattern paper, I want to do a little bit of stamping in the background. So I have this border stamp of cupcakes, which I thought would be quite cool just as a sort of a pencil drawing coming out either side of the circle. So the first one that I stamp doesn't come out very well, and that's because I don't have the sponge surface underneath. So I bring the Versamat in, then turn it over the right way, so I have got some sponge, and then I can stamp around the circle with the other ones. And that bad one will be pretty much hidden anyway, so that's okay. So then I can use the lines on the pattern paper to get them relatively straight, and using the pewter again I think just ties in the cardstock in the background with the cotton that I've used to stitch on the circle, kind of blends it all together. And I've used a piece of scrap paper there so that it didn't go all the way to the edge of the patterned paper. And then I can put that back in line to check where I need some more and add a couple extra little spots, and one more up the top I think to finish that off. Yes, and it doesn't really matter that it looks messy underneath because that's quite a big piece that's going to cover a wee bit of the background anyway. So on the top of the patterned paper it tells us what colours coordinate with that cardstock, and sage was one of them, so I've used a scrap of sage to punch out some ferns, which I'm hoping will work as leaves for Tara's guidelines, and I'll just scatter them around the place. And then I've got these buttons which also have flowers on them, so they're kind of buttons and flowers, and some of them are actually flower shapes. So I'm just dry fitting them around the place here, and it does take me a little while to get them where I want them, and then I'll bring in the buttons and do the same thing. Now these buttons are really cool colours, and they kind of not only match the colour palette in the mood board that Tara gave us to work from, but also the colours of the icing that we used on the cupcakes on the day. So I'm just going to scatter a few around, and then when I've got them in the right place, I will, or close enough to where I want them, I'll bring in some art glitter glue and go around quickly just sticking them down. Now I will stitch the actual buttons down as well, but to do that it's really helpful to have them kind of in place anyway. When I stick them down I'll just leave them to dry a little bit so that when I pick the card up I can pierce a hole through the button and the pattern cardstock to get a good hole to put the needle through. So it's ironic that Morty should wander through because Tara has a cat very similar, and we often see Jasper in her videos, and Morty and Jasper actually look quite similar to my mind. And anyway, from this moment on, Morty has gone behind me and laid on the chair and gone to sleep. So long as Morty's comfortable and keeping me company, we're all happy. I'm just finishing up a little bit of journaling on some sticky strips at the bottom of this page, which is, again, remember the second page. It's the right-hand page of a double page spread. So I don't need to do a lot of journaling, and these journaling strips are perfect for just the odd sentence. Now I'm bringing in some 3-dimensional little stickies here, and when I've taken the backing off them I realise that I actually need to stitch the buttons before I put the yellow circle on top of the pattern paper. So I've come back to pierce the holes through all those buttonholes once the glue's dry, and then I'll bring the needle through, and I'll just show you a couple here. These buttons aren't going to hold any buttonholes or shirts or anything together, so I'm just trimming them off and taping the tails down behind so that they're hidden and holding it tight. And remember, we've already glued the buttons, so they should stay there anyway, but the cotton is there as a bit of a decorative thing and an added security as well, I suppose. So I will go around and finish popping all those down. And then I can use those dimensionals that I put on the back to adhere that yellow circle to the pattern paper. I'll then go around underneath the photos with a little bit more of the double-sided tape just to make sure that everything is now secure in the right place. And then I'll bring the sponge in again and pierce the rest of these holes that are on the background piece of paper so that I can then add the stitching to that. Now some of these I can join together when I stitch and carry the cotton from one to the other. So I won't show you the whole process of that because you've already seen it. But while I'm doing that, I'll just remind you that this is a hop and there will be loads of different videos to watch in this celebration of Tara's 1,000 subscribers. It's fantastic that she's got that far, and I know she'll get a whole lot more too. So if you haven't subscribed yet, push that button, and we're told you also need to push the bell on our channels as well so that you get the notifications of our videos coming up. I'd love you to subscribe to my channel as well as I build towards my first 500. Love to have you along on the journey. So now that I have secured all those buttons and things on every layer, I can put some double-sided tape around the outside and stick this to the darker grey frame in the background. So I think we have followed the colour palette that Tara gave us to use and all the criteria that was in her list. So I'm really happy with the way that turned out. I did do the other page as well, so I have a double page spread to share for this hop. Thank you so much for watching. Congratulations again, Tara. Fantastic achievement, and I look forward to seeing all the other videos. Happy crafting, everyone.